Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album listen along review slash reaction. If you've never seen one of my videos before, what I'm going to do is basically sit here. I'm going to push play on the album. I'm going to listen all the way through, and I'm just going to sort of share my thoughts with you as I go through and listen to it for the very first time. I have not listened to this album yet. If you would like to skip all the preamble that I do at the beginning, where I sort of go over a little bit of my history with the band, you can skip to this time over here. And if you would like to go ahead and skip to the very end of the video where I'm going to do my sort of post review and just sort of get my thoughts on it after I've listened to it all, you can skip to this timestamp right here. So with that in mind, I always like to start these videos off just talking a little bit about my history with this band, with the band that I'm listening to the album of. And Gangstagrass is a really important band to me. I discovered them years and years and years and years ago. If you're not familiar with Gangstagrass, first of all, you're in for a huge treat because this is going to be something that you've probably never heard before, probably never heard anything like it before. And if you are familiar with Gangstagrass, then you probably already heard this album because it has been already out for months and months. And so that's my fault. I apologize to Gangstagrass for not listening to this album. I apologize to Wrench for not listening to this sooner. I did help promote the album as much as I could, promote it, push it on Facebook, things like that, shared the link to it and whatnot. And I added to my Spotify playlist. However, I haven't listened to it yet. I've been saving it for this video. I got to point out right away, I never wear a hat. I hate wearing hats, but of course I had to wear my Gangstagrass hat for this video. I got this hat when I was actually lucky enough to see Gangstagrass perform a few years ago in Lincoln, Nebraska at a really cool small venue on like the upper floor of a building where right outside the windows on one wall was this bright neon billboard that just kept flashing all these weird colors. I'd never been to the venue before. I've never been there since, but it was worth it to go see Gangstagrass. And I actually got this really sweet vinyl here that is of their album. That's actually sort of a compilation album of different Gangstagrass albums and Wrench albums or Wrench songs put together. And Wrench actually signed it up here. You can see this is actually one of my most prized vinyls. I don't have a ton of vinyl. I'm not a big vinyl fan, but it's really cool that I have this, and I'm really proud of that one in particular. Seeing them live was really cool, and I feel sorry for the band this year that they weren't able to tour with this album, but hopefully they'll be able to tour with it coming up. So in terms of Gangstagrass, if you're not familiar with them or the producer Wrench is the one that does mostly all of the music you're going to hear. He does have other musicians that play on there, but he's sort of the driving force behind it. Nowadays, he kind of does mostly like the sort of hip hop beats and things you'll hear in the songs, as well as does a lot of singing. But back in the day, he did almost everything. And the very first Gangstagrass album was just this really cool album of samples that he took from old timey country songs and bluegrass songs and mixed them with sort of rap beats. And then he got rappers, I believe, from around the New York area to be on that album and just sort of guest. And that album is a really cool special album. I don't think it's ever officially been released. You can't purchase it anywhere because it's all samples that he didn't have permission to use, but it floats around on the internet. I'm sure you could find it pretty easily. It is a fantastic album. And since then, Gangstagrass has put out a bunch of stuff. But to me, Gangstagrass all sort of comes down to Wrench because he's the one that decides how everything sounds, and he's the one that sort of started everything, and it all comes down to him putting all these weird, different, disparate musical elements together. Gangstagrass, by the way, if you're not familiar, is a combination of sort of Americana, bluegrass, and a little bit of country with hip-hop rap, and it's awesome. Like I said, if you've never heard it before, you're in for a real treat. So I just wanted to go through here and show some of the stuff that I have. I have some of Wrench's earlier albums, and I think I have everything that Wrench has that's available. This B-Star album is actually really cool. This is sort of a more country style album. So if you kind of like what you hear here, but you want more country style, you can check this out. I believe it's on Spotify. I have this autographed version of Above Market Value, which is another B-Star, which stands for Battlestar album. So that's just kind of a cool thing. These are some pretty rare CDs. I don't think you can purchase them on Amazon, for example. I actually have somewhere with me a bandana I was going to try to find and wear around my neck like a cowboy. This exact pattern here that my friend got for me at a show when Gangstagrass was playing in Austin. He went to go see him, and he knew I loved him, so he bought me all the stuff that he could there. And this was one of the things he got. This is just a little sampler. This is a really special album to me. This is one of Wrench's very earliest albums. This actually is from, let's see if it says, 2004. And this is his project called Elkhorn Riders. And this whole album is basically Wrench doing sort of like trip hop, hip hop beats over very slow ballad country songs. And this is all featuring songs that were done originally by the Lonesome Sisters. There's 7 songs on here, and this album is fantastic. I actually think it's probably my favorite thing Wrench has ever done. So I love this album. And then we get to the meat of what we're talking about here. And this is the Gangstagrass albums that have been released thus far commercially. So we have their very first Gangstagrass album, of which every song features tones. It's Gangstagrass featuring tones, this whole album. And this one's got a few really awesome songs on it. It's really cool. It's very Old West theme, basically. Then we got, I didn't really put these in order because I just kind of think of these albums as a trilogy. We have Rappalachia, Broken Hearts and Stolen Money, and then American Music. And these 3 albums are just sort of like I said, I kind of consider them a trilogy. Over the course of these 3 albums, Gangstagrass and Wrench went from basically being a group that used multiple MCs or rappers on all of his songs to having 2 guys be basically featured members of the bands. And that's Dolio the Sleuth and Our Son. And they are, I believe, who we're going to hear on this album. A vast majority of all the rapping is going to be done by them. And then on all their albums, they have guest vocalists that come in. But Our Son and Dolio the Truth are considered members of the band, along with a few other guys. I think Dan Whitener is one of the guys who does some singing and background stuff. And then they've had different sort of dobro players throughout the years. Wrench plays acoustic guitar and sings, and then he runs sort of a hip-hop drum machine on the stage. At least he did. That was what he was doing when I saw them. To my knowledge, they've never toured with a real drummer. I think that would be really cool, but it kind of goes in the face of what they're trying to do, so I understand why they don't do that. And so now we come up to the album you're here for. This is No Time for Enemies. I have not listened to this yet. I do not know what it sounds like. I heard a little tiny bit of one single when they first started promoting it way back earlier this year in 2020. And I'm a little bit trepidatious only because Wrench and Gangstagrass have been very vocal on Facebook this year, talking about a lot of political issues, which is great. I am not a political person, and so I'm not sure, but I'm going to kind of guess that there's a lot of sort of political messaging and things like that on this album, and so we'll see what happens as we get into it. For those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I do not like to, I'm not a fan of a lot of swearing in music, and traditionally Gangstagrass doesn't have a lot of that, but there's always some swearing on his albums, and it's not any sort of a thing that would ever ruin a song for me or anything like that, but we'll see. If this album is, I kind of have a feeling this album is going to be a very passionate album from these guys, and if that's the case, sometimes people have the tendency to maybe swear a little bit more in their music, but we'll have to see. Right off the bat, I want to talk a little bit about the artwork. This is the first time I've obviously opened this and looked at this. So we have a cool picture of the band in here. Not sure how well you can see. I have the camera placed a little differently than I normally do. One thing I want to just point out here that's a little bit of a bummer to me, though I can kind of understand, is that if you look at this artwork here, it looks significantly different than the artwork from their previous albums, which I really love. How this artwork is all done by the same person, and oh dang, I should have looked who the artist was that did it. I'm sure it says right in here. The cover paintings are done by Elena Rudolph, and I believe that she is the lady that does it for all of their albums. We'll just go ahead and say that it is. Yes, Elena Rudolph here. Yes. Okay, so I love the feeling of all of these. I'm not sure, again, how well you can see these, but they all have this sort of folksy scene of sort of the American West, and I love how all of these look together. The artwork is incredible. And one of the things I wanted to make sure I looked at when I saw this was, is this Alana lady someone that did the artwork for this? No, cover art by Fahim Majid, and I apologize if I mispronounced that. So that kind of tells me that they're going in a different direction for this. I don't know if the music's going to sound any different, but I really prefer in terms of the style, in terms of the way the album looks, the artwork, I prefer their older albums. However, you know, I'm not going to obviously hold that against them. Oh, I also want to point out just real quick, Gangstagrass is one of the only bands that I actually purchased digital music from. I have a cool one of their deluxe editions of American music here, and this cool little, it comes in a with a thumb drive. It's got a bunch of additional stuff in there. It's actually really cool. And I also have this sweet sort of like necklace wood. This is Wrench's latest. Their Gangstagrass. The reason I wanted to bring this up was because I wanted to talk about this for a second. The most recent album Wrench has released was his solo album called Them's the Breaks. I believe that's what it's called. And that album was really kind of disappointing to me because I think throughout the whole album, the level of the vocals was mixed a little too hot, and it was a little bit so much that it's kind of tough for me to enjoy that album. Some of the songs are worse than others, but for the majority of the album, I think the vocals are a little too loud. And one of the reasons I bought this, not knowing that, was this is really cool because it has the instrumental version of the whole album on there. And I love listening to Wrench/Gangstagrass instrumentals. I've been a member of their newsletter or their email chain for years and years and years. Sometimes I'll just get cool emails from them saying, hey, here's the link to download the instrumental version of our last album. And I love that kind of stuff. They are so good at talking to their fans on Facebook, in emails, things like that. And even their like music videos and things like that. Recently, they've been doing all sorts of like live hangouts on Facebook and on YouTube. That kind of stuff is so cool. And I really appreciate a band that goes the extra mile to do that kind of stuff. Okay, so back to this. We're not going to futz around too much anymore. I got this is a mixture of cherry Kool-Aid and lemonade. Good stuff. I got my portable CD player here. We're just going to put the CD in. There's no booklet that comes with this album, and that's pretty standard for Wrench and for all the Gangstagrass releases. I will say the printing quality of this is not the best. The font is a little bit foggy. It's a little bit blurry. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm really excited to listen to this, and we'll just go ahead and see what happens. I've never worn headphones with a hat before, so whatever. All right, everybody. I'll include a link to the album on Spotify down below so that you can click and listen along with me. For copyright purposes, I am not going to include the music in this video. However, if Gangstagrass, anyone from the band ever sees this and you will allow me to upload it with all the music, I would be happy to re-upload the video with all the music in the video at a slightly lower volume. But anyway, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to hit play, and we're going to be on track 1 right now. Track 1 is just called Freedom, and it's starting right now.
For years, for decades.
Well, we got started out with a violin, or a fiddle as it would be referred to, I believe, here.
And bled and died for this. What we ain't gonna do is wait.
Now we got some banjo off to the left.
In the sky. I asked for its purpose and it gave me a reply. It said, soon come the day master dies, but first you must prepare. Keep our eyes on the prize through the beat of the drum, the light of the fire. We decide to be as free.
I really love the mix on this.
Sharpen every knife, get our people inside ready and
it's a bit more of a concentrated in the middle as opposed to being spread out. Wrench likes to use lots of claps and things, and he likes to have those feel very wide. And sometimes that can kind of throw off the balance of the stereo spectrum of sound. All right, so we're in the first chorus, and we got several people singing. I believe this was the single they released, because this sounds familiar to me right off the bat. Of course, that also could just be the sign of a well-written song. A lot of well-written songs have a sort of a familiar feeling to them, but even if it's the first time you've heard them, because they're based in something that sort of you already understand. So I don't know who did the first verse. I know the second verse, this is one of the two rappers that I recognize. I believe the first verse was either our son or Dolio the Truth, and the second verse is the other one of those. I apologize for not knowing whose voice is who, but I believe so far this is the second verse. We've heard both of them. I love the mix, as I said. The kick and the snare, loud, dry, right in the middle. I assume that this is another beat that was taken from sort of like a machine that Wrench has or something. Could be a custom-made beat that he made. I love the gang vocal, or sort of the multiple vocals during the chorus. Gives it more of a sort of a gangy feeling. And I love there's a low voice mixed in there, which I have not noticed on any previous Gangstagrass stuff. So that's really cool and adds a sort of a cool Americana-y feel to it. Okay, now we got a fiddle solo. I love the way this is mixed. I'm noticing the bass in there. A lot of Gangstagrass and Wrench music surprisingly doesn't have any bass in it at all. It just relies on the drums, the kick drum mostly, to be the low frequencies that you're hearing and to sort of drive the song along. They do have songs with bass in them. The bass is never a featured or prominent instrument, just sort of there to kind of plod along when it's there. This is really cool though. The drums sound really good. Some of Wrench's albums have a very a very open feeling mix to them, which can make it seem not as, this is going to sound so terrible, but I really think some of his music could benefit from being more compressed. The style of music that he's going for, the sort of old-timey recording sort of Americana style stuff with the hip-hop, it all is based on old crunchy samples of things being created new. And so over-compressing things like that as an effect can really benefit, but Wrench really never does that kind of a thing. His music is not very compressed, which is nice, it's very dynamic, but at the same time, the mixes almost have sort of like a loose feeling to them. And this so far is just tight. This is a nice tight mix. Everything is sitting there perfectly in the pocket. Okay, that's the end of song one. Love the fiddle in that song. Ooh. Oh my gosh, that sub frequency. Oh. Cool acoustic guitar lick. Ba-dum-dum-da-dum. Ba-dum-dum-da-dum. Love that guitar riff. This song is called Affirmative. A little bit tough to read the back here. Starting off with Wrench vocals, going into verse 1.
You already know, bro. Nicer than them suckers, always rhyming about they toaster. Known to set up shop and rock a spot in every poster.
Oh, I guess I should say too, if you're not familiar with my videos, I tend to not focus very much on lyrics and lyrical content. That first song, you could tell, was very important to everyone singing. And like I said, this year on Facebook, they have been going very hard in terms of being not necessarily overly political, but being very aware of everything that's been happening in our country and pushing the right side of that, I think. So they've been really active, I guess. They've been very active in a lot of those things, and that's cool. Again, as I said, I'm not a very political person. So we're in the chorus now. Multiple tracks of Wrench, not necessarily overdubs, but multiple takes of the same thing, just panned slightly, giving it a little bit more of a wide feeling. All the verses so far have been straight, one track right in the middle. They don't do a lot of overdubbing, or sort of like at the ends of phrases. It's very common in hip-hop rap to have a second rapper, or even the rapper who's doing the verse, to overdub the very end of phrases, so that there's like a multiple layered vocal at the end of each phrase to give it a little bit extra punch. They don't do that a lot, which I kind of would attribute to them performing the songs live, but I know when they were live they did that too, so I'm not sure. All right, here we're on second verse, I believe, just ended, and now we're going into a little instrumental part, into the chorus. Little drum fills there. Not something... Okay. Okay, now that's interesting. We got a fiddle there, but the fiddle had a lot of room sound to it. Almost sounds like it could have been recorded in a stereo, with a stereo mic. Oh, and we got turntables. Oh, I miss scratching so much in a lot of music. I wish scratching was as prominent as it was in the early 2000s and especially during the 90s. I love scratching. Like turntable scratching. The sub-frequency in this song is great. The drums are great too. The kick is not overly huge. What the feeling of being pushed almost, the song is being pushed by the sub-frequency in there. Which is nice. The snare is not really a snare sound. It was more of a clap, so a bit of a thinner sound, but it really worked with it. Track 3. Oh, we got fast verse.
High school scrimmaging, part futuristic, part primitive, progressive, still rooted in the history that makes the source of all trueness. I don't give a damn how much you move units, dragging y'all back to school like truants. Back in action, tag back then, don't be surprised when I rhyme in Latin.
Ooh, I love the riff. Love it. Banjo flying around in there too. Ooh, background female vocals. Oh, I have never heard Gangstagrass do a song like this. This is like a funky song almost. The background vocals are fantastic. Fantastic background vocals. Oh, the ooh. Oh, I love it. Oh, going into a fast banjo picking solo. It's off to the right a little bit. And on the left, we have a little bit of a violin or a fiddle. Oh, now we got half tempo. The first verse was very fast. Loved it. Now we got half tempo. Very airy in there, almost some vocals going. Love it. Dude, I love this. I almost wonder if they wrote more of this album together in a room, like actually playing the songs. Some of their stuff, you start a song, you go through, and the drum beat never changes, and it just sort of, the different instruments do sort of different things during the chorus and the verse. There might be a little solo section somewhere. But so far, these three songs seem to have a lot more arrangement to them than the typical Gangstagrass album. I love the bass. And there's sort of like a Wurlitzer. I believe there's a Wurlitzer sounding organ in there. Oh. Ooh. Get a little singing from the rappers there, I think. Could be featuring a guest vocalist, I'm not sure. I'm not really looking at there's not much info on there. I don't want to get distracted reading stuff. This is great. The groove here is very different from any Gangstagrass song that I've heard before. Oh, give this song time to breathe. I love that. I love that. Ooh. Now we're back to the starting tempo of the song. More scratches. Love it. I love the scratching. Oh. Yes, there is a Wurlitzer in there. Oh, this song just is so smooth. Oh, and all the vocals in there, everyone doing their thing. Oh, bring it back to the beginning of the song.
pills of all types of doses. Hit like the fist of the flying lotus. And right now, I'm putting all of y'all on notice.
Oh, what a way to end the song so abruptly. Oh. Okay. Go You 100 featuring Demeanor. We're on track 4 now, by the way. Track 3, like legit, maybe one of the best Gangstagrass songs I've ever heard. Maybe top 2, top 3, top 2. Maybe best song? I don't know. That song blew me away.
Yeah. You know what to do. Gangstagrass.
The quality of everything is...
All that is left yet to do is just to choose. Instead of standing on the wall.
Now this one's got like a percussive instrument in there.
I'm just playing. No, I ain't.
Like a...
Get your ass on the floor and
some
start
sort of like a
doing your
tin
thing.
instrument sounding
Get
thing
into it
almost.
with a thirst for life. On site, too, right
Almost
like
sounds
a
like something a
first
street
class
musician would be
back
playing.
song, gleaming with a
I'm not
burst
sure
of
what to
light.
call that,
Then you
actually.
said we're getting this some work tonight, 'cause the plan is to keep it near
The
lesser than I
the
hit
quality of the
grand.
recording of the
Hands on
vocals
like a
is
stage with 100
perfect.
stands. Gonna stand
It's
on
exactly
the
what it
floor,
needs to be.
hand on it,
It's
electrons
crisp,
circling
it's
in the
clear,
middle,
it's
slam
dry.
on it. Full throttle, dump the whole damn can on it. Load up every bass and we gon' hit a grand slam on it.
There they have some overdubs there. Ooh. Ooh, the fiddle there doing almost sort of like an Indian sounding, almost, yeah, Indian, Middle Eastern, maybe Egyptian, I guess. I know there's a specific musical, I don't want to say, scale, I guess, is what I'm looking for. There's like a specific scale that makes music feel more Egyptian or more Middle Eastern. I don't know if they're playing this song is in that song. This is Demeanor rapping, I assume now. It's a different voice than we've heard thus far on the album. Also, by the way, I have not heard any swear words at all. I haven't been paying attention to the vocals that much, though. I'm hearing different things in the drums too. I like it. Wide claps again for the chorus or for the snare. Claps almost a snap. I like Wrench here. He's singing really softly, which is kind of nice. It gives the song a different dynamic feel. And of course the scratching with the sample of Wrench going 100. Ooh, some waterfall, almost classical fiddle there. Okay, that song seemed kind of short to me, but
Come on.
this is Slide With You, track 5. Ooh.
Come on.
So far, this album has been very fun, which is not what I was expecting. I was expecting a more serious album, based on everything that they posted on the internet this year. Female backing vocals again, love it. And there's a male vocal in there too. This is something that I feel has been missing from their music a little bit. They've had it before, but to me, one of the most amazing things to me about this band is that I'm not a huge fan of hip-hop. I'm not really a fan of anything that's considered rap at all. I do love some old school hip-hop, and I like a few modern hip-hop groups. I'm also not a huge fan of Americana bluegrass music. I like some of the sort of darker, sort of gothic Americana stuff, but I don't generally listen to the musical elements that are in this. I don't generally listen to when they're separated from each other. So the fact that they're thrown together and I like it so much is great. But one of the things that I do love about country music in particular, and sort of bluegrass Americana music as well, is usually when it gets into the chorus, there's a lot of gang vocals doing harmonies, and it's like fun to sing along with. And that's what I'm getting from this album so far with the choruses. Sounds like a group of people in a room singing and having fun. And I love that. In the past, some of Wrench's stuff has felt a little bit manufactured, you know, because I'm sure he created it sitting down at a laptop in his own personal studio with his instruments and then having guests come in and do it. But as I said earlier, this to me just sounds like a much more collaborative effort. The breaks, the sort of fills in between sections, the transitions from section to section seem very smooth. There's drum fills and things like that, which is not always present in sort of hip-hop beat-based music. I love it.
If the whole world starts to go up in smoke, we're riding together and we're going for broke. But I'm trying to make sure that don't happen. Climb on this boat with me, ride with your captain. Maintain yourself in an orderly fashion. Calm and collected, but I still need your passion. This is a call to action, packed with exact facts.
So here we have Dolio the Sleuth and our son, the voice of reason, as doing vocals. We have Wrench doing guitar vocals and beats. Then we have Dan Whitener playing banjo, doing some vocals and guitar. And then we also have a man named Brian Farrow, who I don't recall seeing before, though I apologize if he's been in Gangstagrass forever, playing fiddle and vocals. And he also played bass, so that's awesome. Good job to that guy. If I'm correct and you haven't been in Gangstagrass forever, you have added something special to this band that rose them up to another level. Love it.
1, 2, 3.
Love the beat on this one. Got some banjo going, got guitar going. We also have DJ Lacey T on turntables, Tina Lama on bass, Bennett Pastor on keyboards, Cole Quest Rotante playing dobro, I apologize if I'm mispronounced, and Olivia K vocals. So we have special guests. So this is Dan Whitener doing the vocals, I know, on this song. Yes, love it. I love it when Dan Whitener sings the songs. It gives it much more of that feeling I was talking about earlier with a bunch of people in a room singing.
But I'm so pro-black and I got so many bills and they ain't those stacks. Hey there, Kojak, sucking on your lollipop. Think I can get a ride over to the trolley stop? I'm leaving my first gig, head to the next one. Sleep when I'm dead. I'm trying to get these checks, son.
In this song, I'm really noticing the striking acoustic guitar notes, the stabs. That's cool. It's not really a melody being played or anything like that. It is. Shout out to Mountain Dew. Those of you who watch my videos usually know that I love my Mountain Dew, and that's usually what I drink. But got some Kool-Aid today instead, so dang it. We get a shout out to Mountain Dew, and I'm not even drinking it. Oh, I've let Mountain Dew down. Anyway, I can't remember if I was talking about anything special, but the stabs on the guitar. Doing something to just sort of be a percussive element, but really adding a thickening agent to the song, and it's panned right in the middle with the drums, so it feels like it's a part of that. I don't notice any bass on this song. Oh no, there's bass there. The bass is very rounded off. It has almost no top end to it at all, which is serving its purpose as sort of the low frequencies of the song. There's more low frequencies in this song than a typical on this album than typical previous Gangstagrass albums. Because as I said, their songs always felt a little bit thin because they were missing a bit of that without having the bass there.
Somehow we all made it out from the rundown. Proper plan, forget it, getting played for a dumb clown. Took the less travel road, standing out amongst crowds.
I love the stops, the breaks, the dramatic pauses. Very typical for hip hop. Love that.
Your bread ain't really thick if all you buying is a bit. I cut it up in sections, then I fry it till it's crisp. Season a little more than required for the fix.
Well, I could not pay my ticket, and
This melody sounds familiar. I love it. One of the staples of old Americana music, country music, is telling a story. And this song is telling a story. I love the low voice in the gang vocals. Can you spare a nickel, brother? Nickel, brother. Can you spare a dime? That is adding, for me, so much into the mixes, into these songs and the arrangements. I love that. Having that in there is really adding a thickening agent to the vocals. Okay, we're on track 7 here. Oh my gosh. There's only 11 songs on this album, so... Okay, and we're going working on that chain. That's tracks. We're going back right into another Dan Whitener song. For the most part, a vast majority of the Gangstagrass and Wrench songs are all sung. The singing parts are all done by Wrench. So it's kind of a treat when you get someone else. Not that there's anything wrong with Wrench's singing. He has a very particular voice with a very particular, very specific characteristics to his voice. You can really tell when it's Wrench singing. Even if it's pitch shifted, I find a lot of the times. Because they do some pitch shifting stuff, but... I hear the phone ringing, and I'm going to ignore it. Okay, we have a different singer here. I don't see this featuring anybody. So I wonder if this voice is Brian Farrow then? I love it. Very smooth voice. I'm still out here working on that chain.
Yeah.
Other verse.
Every inch is essential. Work hard, study up to cultivate the mental. Pushing ever forward up against the opposition. Steadily building, moving forward on my mission. Sharpening my vision, the chain motivates me. Every swing strengthening my arms.
The fiddle here in this part is really cool. Just
Destiny presents an opportunity for taking my
just sort of offbeat stabs.
Sacred sounds I create, channel.
Another really important thing that I want to point out is that when you have beats like this, everyone is playing lackadaisically. Everyone is playing slowly. And I'm not saying they're playing too slow or slow for their part. I'm saying they're playing behind the beat just a little bit, which is giving it that flow. It gives it that flow. And when I work on and make music myself, which is horrendous compared to this, one of the things I find that's toughest to do is to give things a backbeat, slow it down, play everything just a little bit slow, which I know that might sound weird to someone who's not a musician. If you're a musician, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's all over here. That makes everything feel more realistic. When you're just programming things or doing electronic music, things like that, it can be very easy for everything to just go right to the grid. Now there's a lot of human elements to this, so it won't feel that way, or it shouldn't anyway, because there's so many people contributing to this. But one thing I'm really noticing on this album, even if it was subconscious up to this point, is the flow, the feeling of being behind the beat, the feeling of fitting into the pocket. The feeling of being a human playing an instrument, a human singing, and having people in the background doing things together, having the vocals flow. You can definitely tell that more than one person had an influence in the writing of what was happening, especially with the background vocals. It sounds like there are people in a room writing a song together and saying, hey, what if we do this? Let's all try it. Okay, go into the studio, do it that way. And man, it's really... Track 8. Hard times come around, I assume. Hard times come again, no more. Featuring... I don't know how to pronounce that. Kaya Cater. Vocals and banjo. Oh. I love this already. Some of my favorite Gangstagrass songs have featured a woman named Brandy Hart on their previous albums, and one of my all-time favorite songs that they do is called, oh shoot, it's hard for me to think of the name of it while I'm listening to this. It's on The Banks of the Ohio. The Banks of the Ohio, one of my all-time favorite Gangstagrass songs, just so female vocal. And as I said, I love the Lonesome Riders, Elkhorn Riders with the Lonesome Sisters. This is... I'm anxious to see if anything else is going to happen in this, or if it's going to be a slow song, more of a ballad-like song the whole time. We have, oh, those harmony vocals. Oops, got a rap verse coming. Gonna give me a beat too?
Raise a glass
No.
to the hard times that made us all stronger. Cause they don't come around here no longer. We fought the good fight necessary to remove them. Adversaries of all types, we showed them and we proved them. That progression was the only way. Every step forward wasn't getting blown away.
It's got to be tough for a... Well, not tough. Obviously, these guys are professionals. I would imagine it'd be more difficult to write a rap verse to something without drums. So maybe they made a beat for this so that he could write it, and not that he couldn't without it, of course they could. And then just take the beat away. But I don't think so, because this has a very human feeling to it. Humans playing instruments with the tiny, tiny imperfections of those humans playing, giving it its feeling. Which lends to the emotion. It lends to the emotion. And I just want to shout out one more time, like, the quality of the recording is fantastic. Every instrument is crisp and clear, placed where it needs to be. The vocals are all clean. Everything is recorded fantastic. And the mixing is great. The editing is great. Editors and mixers don't often get a lot of credit, and that's my favorite part of music. I love mixing and editing music specifically, trying to take all of the different elements and make it all work together to give something sort of a signature sound. It's very gratifying to do, very hard to do. And this album has been expertly put together, and I'm going to say this, we're not done yet, this is the best sounding Gangstagrass album. There are other Gangstagrass albums that sound a bit more sort of like hip-hoppy, you know, where the beat just starts, goes through the whole song, and then the verse, like the tone stuff specifically. But this is just another level of musicianship. I don't want to say the playing's better, but it just is a package. It's been put together so well.
Wipe away the pain, take away the stain of the demons been on doing it again.
I feel like a lot of the verses have been about very serious topics, and I'm not paying attention to them very much. Might be doing it a disservice, but as I've said before in multiple videos and earlier in this video, I am not a lyric guy. That's one of the reasons I love listening to music in other languages. I've said it a million times and I'll say it a million times more. When you listen to a song in a language other than yours, you're freed from the burden of having to relate to it, and you can just appreciate the music for what it is. You can appreciate the vocal as another instrument in the song. In this song, having there be nothing right behind the back, I did notice a few sort of, not necessarily pops, but like low frequency, subsonic frequencies in the vocals that could have been easily cut out without losing any of the fidelity. So I do want to point that out. But this song has no drums, no bass. Or at least there could be a bass in there. Oh, it sounds like there's a upright bass, which is awesome. Again, the background vocals here really making this stand out. I'm hearing a lot of low sub frequencies in the vocals. So that's a tiny negative. But most people wouldn't notice that at all, and they wouldn't care. And if you were listening to this on any device other than really good headphones or fantastic speakers with a sub, you would not notice that. Okay, into a drum beat. Do better. And this is featuring Randall Wyatt.
Gangstagrass, big brand. Check the raison d'etre is to make songs better.
The
and
raison
take on the
d'etre.
effort of doing the utmost. Cause way too many humans are cutthroat. So much stuff that they're doing just so they can get it in and get over on the next man. I'm here to elevate and navigate like a sextant. So we're cruising through the weather. Anything you can do, my crew can do it better. Make songs for you to
On
groove
some of
to
the songs, the
forever,
fiddle has
forever.
sounded like it was recorded in
Units
stereo,
choose to measure, night after night,
which is interesting.
day after
It could
day.
also just have a
Bet
stereo
we get
effect
you
on it where
lifted
you
in the
delay
Gangstagrass
something a
way.
little bit
Aloha,
and put an
Ashe,
effect on one
Namaste,
side,
peace. We're
which
giving y'all
can make
back
it
whatever
feel
way
spread out
that
and
we
wider
break.
than it
We
was when it
stay
was
on
recorded
our
just
feet
in
the
mono.
face of defeat, no retreat. The only thing that
But right
breaks
now I'm
is
hearing
the
something on the
beat,
far
cause
left and the far right. Love the snare sample that they used here. Not really a snare. Almost like a rim tap almost. But not super high frequency. There's a lot of very clever use of low pass filters on a lot of this stuff. Bass, definitely low pass filtered at a very low frequency. But I'm not missing any of what the high frequencies usually add is definition. So when you say some sound is more rounded, we have a guest rapper rapping here, and I don't want to disregard him. He sounds great. But when you have low pass filters, you can make a lot of things. Which a low pass filter just means you're taking the high frequencies and cutting them off of it at a certain point, and letting the low frequencies pass through. A high pass filter would be the opposite of that. You're cutting off the lows and allowing the high frequencies through. So having a lot more low frequency, low pass filters on things makes everything feel more rounded. But then the vocals have the full spectrum range of frequency, which is what gives the music its high fidelity sound, with the low fidelity almost sounding music low fidelity, I say. Interesting low notes on the guitar in this song, played quietly. It gives it a more woody sound.
The elders used to say
A more
that if
resonant,
you knew
woody
better,
sound.
You do better, and that's why we do it together. The powers that be wish that me and you sever. Any ties to keep us joined to help us make it through weather. Or not, we got a paper stack of really huge cheddar over a bunch of certified alphabet soup letters. We can't cooperate, collaborate on getting by or build something substantial enough to lift us up highest one. The virtue of a nation is increased by example of the treatment and extends to the least of us. Is the value of a life governed by the greedy, or determined to heal the sick and feed the needy? If we reach to our neighbor when the storm is wreaking havoc, then we each have a better chance of fending off the damage. That's a demonstrated fact. Come together as a pack, and it ain't nothing wrong with that, and that's that.
Cause we all do better when we all do better. Can't get better than that. Yeah, we all do better when we all do better. Can't get better.
Again, the background vocals. We're on track 9 of an 11-track album. The background vocals and the gang vocals and the harmony vocals, these stand out for this album. It makes everything feel more loose, almost more musically loose, but at the same time it fills in the space, makes the choruses much bigger, which separates the sections of the song. Okay. What I Am. Love this right away. Dan Whitener vocals.
I'm a fire-breathing thunderclap, slipping in the vaporized. Silver lining of this cloud is something that's electrified. Strike and leave you petrified, sharp enough to catch the eye. Can't deny the flavor.
Sounds like a different voice, but I don't see.
Cause I'm a 6-foot axe-wielding lumberjack that chop a tree.
Sounds a little. This could be our son or Dolio. Sounds a little different though. And it's doubled. The whole time it's been doubled. A little bbit more high frequency mixed in on this vocal, a little bit more nasally. Love it. Makes it sound like this sounds like a different person. And it could be, but this song doesn't say it features anymore.
Break it on down when I hit the scene. Flip this thing, get this green. Nickel stick and crispy clean. Spit this thing, shine it on up for the silky sheen. Heavyweight bang when I tip that beam. It ain't no in between. Nah, man.
And sometimes it could have just been they used a different microphone on that verse and gave it a whole different feel. It sounds silly, but microphone choice is so important for how something sounds. You can do a lot of work, post-work on it after it's been recorded with whatever you chose to use to record it. But if you start with a good capturing device to capture exactly the sound you want the way it is, then you don't have to do much after the fact, and you can craft around that more, as opposed to having to mold every sound to fit it into the box you're trying to fit it into. Okay, he's doing his own background vocals there. That's Dan Whitener again, I believe, doing all of his background vocals. Ooh, changing the drum beat there. A double snare hit. That was a little bit more intense, I feel, than it needed to be.
The beat bangs while the banjo plays. On a mission for substantial papes. And lay up on a vacay in San Tropez. My lady sipping the Tanqueray. Pass me the OJ, cause it's the time that I rule the world like Coldplay. Trust me, I don't play. Really? You
Coldplay
don't say.
reference.
I'm not sure you know who you fucking with, Snowflake. Buttery as Lando Lakes. Hair blowing in the breeze like Lando's cape. Make sure you get your mans on tape, cause you don't wanna miss a single word that Rand's gonna say. You're just a gram away. I'm bringing tons of fun like Christmas Eve on Santa's sleigh. Quit slouching, boys, stand up straight.
I'm gonna say
we're
we're track 10, unless the next song is terrible. I'm gonna say this is my least favorite song on the album. I don't think it's bad by any means. Right now we had not crazy, but we had fast picking banjo and fiddle go in there. This one's I feel like we could have, this song only doesn't have the gang vocals like we have in the previous songs. Just Dan, Mr. Whitener, I believe, doing all of his vocals on this song and background vocals. And this song is missing a little bit of that communal feeling. There was all of a sudden a vocal chopping there. Love it. I believe that's the first time I've ever heard that in a Gangstagrass song. I like that though. Okay, built up and just... That was not my favorite song. Okay, we got Your Land now, featuring Brian. Branje?
It's your land.
Is this Your Land is My Land?
This land is your land, or so it's claimed. But when they came here, it already had a name. And the people that they brought here.
The lady whose name I couldn't pronounce is the lady. I can tell now she's in there singing background vocals. I apologize for not being able to pronounce your name.
That were killed in the fight for their freedom. Don't pretend that your ancestors didn't need them. So this land made now belongs to all of us.
No drums so far.
Whatever God you trust.
I really hope the chorus is just, Yo, this land is my land.
That's part of the populace. Sing from the valleys, yell from the towers. Soldiers with rifles, hippies holding flowers. Rebuild the system, reclaim the power. If this land is yours, it's certainly ours.
Sunny morning, in the shadow of the steeple.
Okay, now I might have been totally wrong because this sounds like a male voice.
I saw my people as they stood hungry. I stood there wondering if this land was made for you and me. There was a big old wall there, it tried to stop me. On the sign it said private property.
Very soulful voice, this singer.
Backside, it didn't say no.
I'm almost wondering if that's the newer person, Brian Farrow.
This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters.
Wow.
This land was made
I love it when groups take a old song and make it into their own new thing. I mean, if you're talking about This Land Is Your Land, like one of the most famous, one of the most iconic Americana songs of all time, one of the most famous songs of all time in regards to our country. Taking that and adding the Gangstagrass spin to it is really cool. Really special.
Think about a place for your fam, where your grandkids find a better place in this land. Don't you find out you ended up wasting the chance to make a path to eradicating hate in this land?
Female vocal here.
Follow my footsteps to the sparkling sands of a diamond desert. All around me, the voice was shouting, saying this land was made for you and me. This land is your land.
Oh, and then having her be the lead vocal in the chorus. In the previous verse, it was the other vocalist doing the lead vocal. That's awesome. Wrench does cool stuff like that sometimes. On one of their previous Gangstagrass albums, he has a song where it features every guest vocalist they had featured throughout the album doing like an 8-bar verse, I think, or a 16-bar verse. And it's just verse after verse after verse after verse after verse. Well, it's verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. And it is awesome. It's a great song. So he's not afraid to mix up structuring a little bit to do something cool. Female vocals back. And I feel like this album has flown by. So of the previous 4 Gangstagrass albums, we got 10 songs on one, 15 on one, 12 on one, 14 on one. Slide guitar there, dobro.
This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land.
It would be fun to go to a show where they're doing this because everyone in the chorus could sing with it, which would be neat to see.
This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Nice. That was a nice surprise. I didn't realize that they did a cover of that song. All right, and it's just over. All right, well. Huh. All right, well. Okay, so that album flew by for me, and I have to say I loved it from start to finish. I think the weakest song was track 10, and that song reminded me a little bit more of how their songs did sound on some of their previous albums, being a little bit less group, a little less gang vocally, a little less loose, I guess. A little bit more thin, I guess. That's kind of a weird way to say it, but man, even that song was pretty good. Gosh, I hate wearing a hat, but I can't take it off because my hair looks terrible. Anyway, my gut reaction is to say that this is the best Gangstagrass album. Now, I hate to have the conversation of quality over quantity, making something better. This album felt short to me. It felt short. You know, if you're going to have 11 songs, and I saw a couple of them I think were less than 3 minutes long, that's fine. You know, the average pop song is 3 minutes long. And for years and years and years, in the 60s, 70s, if you had a song over 3 minutes, it would never have gotten played on the radio. And when you have verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, some of these songs don't have that. They were more of a sort of maybe a chorus at the beginning, that's pretty standard hip hop fare. Chorus, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus out. Some of the songs, all of the song. Okay, I don't want to focus on anything negative. The length of the album. This album is fantastic for all the reasons I mentioned. throughout the album, throughout listening to the album. The gang vocals really stood out to me. Fantastic from front to back. Really felt like a group of people in a studio having fun, figuring out cool vocal harmonies. As I listen to this album going back and forth now, listening to this album moving forward, I will sing along with the choruses. It's going to happen. I can guarantee it, because they wrote songs that are catchy, fun, and then they have a bunch of people in there singing, so that with my stupid, terrible singing voice, I can sing along with them and I'm just one of the group. And I think that's such an important, integral part with a lot of country music, and especially a lot of Americana bluegrass music. It started as people just out gathered as a family around a fire somewhere singing songs, and it's wonderful to have that on this album. It's that is something that has been missing from Gangstagrass's music, I think, in my opinion. I could see how people who are fans of the hip hop side of everything being slightly disappointed with this album. I haven't looked up any reviews for it or anything like that. I assume it's been received very favorably as I'm receiving it. I think all the vocals were great. I didn't really focus, as I said, on any of the verses because I'm not a lyric guy, but everything was recorded fantastically well. The vocals all sat where they needed to. There were some interesting, cool, like recording and mixing techniques done there. As I mentioned, there were some sweet moments where the violin sounded, or the fiddle sounded like it was recorded in stereo, which maybe it was, or it was maybe an effect. Everything was placed exactly where it needed to be. Wrench likes to use the far left and far right of the far left and the far right of the stereo spectrum to add effects to things. And so, like I said, you have claps and things in some of his previous music that make everything feel wider, but actually what it can maybe do sometimes is kind of screw up the stereo image a little bit. None of that in this. There were moments where there were things panned wide and everything was in the middle, but it wasn't distracting. It was very light, and it was there to be thick and to widen the image, as opposed to be like sort of an effect. A lot of the album was mixed and narrow in the middle, and I felt that was totally fine with something panned, 40, 50 degrees to the left, 40, 50 degrees to the right. Everything was always felt very balanced. If there was banjo over here, there was fiddle over here. If there was acoustic guitar in the middle doing some just stabs or something, then there might be a second track doing like low stuff. The bass playing was great. The fact that there was bass playing at all, amazing. I feel like it added a lot to it. I keep coming back to the gang vocals. I think the gang vocals and the vocals in general on this album were fantastic. It wouldn't have worked as good as it did if it weren't for the mixing, though. So I guess I should say I think this album was mixed masterfully. It didn't feel overly shiny and high frequency, which some of Wrench's music has done in the past. Everything has very sharp angles to it, which is what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about high pass filters and low pass filters. There's a lot of low pass filters on the drums and on the bass and things on this album, which made everything feel a little bit more rounded and a lot less high frequencies, a lot less of those shrill frequencies up, beyond 9K, 9,000 hertz. Everything, the whole album, I'm sure if I looked at it on a graph, some sort of oscillator or something, or not an oscillator, some sort of a spectrograph or something, it would be a severe cutoff. And I didn't miss any of that stuff at all. I think the album sounded lo-fi in a way that it should when you're using low pass filters and things like that. The vocals all were clean, very well recorded. There were, I think, one or two songs where I heard like sub frequencies in the vocals that easily could have been cut off with like a 20 hertz low pass filter. But it didn't ruin the song for me or anything. And both of those songs, I think, were songs that had no drums to them. So I guess I can understand why that would be in there. And you wouldn't notice that if you were listening on any device other than great headphones or really great speakers with a sub or something, maybe in your car or something. I think this might be Gangstagrass's best album. It is certainly, the songs on this are better than, I don't want to say better, but like immediately. Track 3 was the one that just I think it was track 3. Yeah, Ain't No Crime. Well, whatever. Just shocked me, blew me away. So good. The got it bad. See, I've only heard, that stuck with me. I love it. That was my favorite song on the album right now. Maybe it'll change. I also like the first track, and throughout the gang vocals. Like I keep coming back to the gang vocals, but it's so important to me because that to me has set this album apart from their other albums. I think maybe if there were one or two more songs, and maybe one song that was a little bit longer, I would have loved to have had one more like female-led vocal song with the drum beat maybe in there, because the one female-led vocal song that we got did have no drums in it whatsoever. So there was a nice mix of the folksy elements, the Americana, the bluegrass. Not a ton of country influence on this album, other than like I said, with the sort of the crafting of the background vocals, which is I think my favorite part of the album. It all comes back to the fact that it sounds fantastic, though, which Wrenches and Gangstagrass's music always does sound good, but this to me is like another level, really, than anything I've heard him do before. Some of his stuff does sound really great, though, but some of it also is sort of questionable in terms of like the sounds of the samples that were being used. Like he has a really cool song about John Henry, and Dan Whitener sings on that song. I love that song. It's really cool, and it's on what I think is I believe it's on American Music. Yeah, and this is my second favorite Gangstagrass album now. If I'm going to call that one my favorite one, I don't know. But that song it feels thin. There's no bass in it. It's just and it's supposed to sound like people standing, stomping, and clapping, but what it ends up sounding like is just samples placed on a timeline with people doing really well played, fast picking banjo, guitar stuff over it. Great written lyrics, awesome vocals, all sorts of stuff, but the whole thing ends up sounding a little bit thin. This album had that extra meat to it to make it feel thick. It felt thick all the way through the whole time. And that's the thing that I think separates this album from their previous albums. This just makes me look so much. I hate doing this with albums when I just hear something for the first time and then go, I can't wait to hear what they do next. I want to appreciate in the moment. But this really does make me think like, what are they going to do next? I love this more warm feeling to everything, the more rounded edges to everything, the very tasty playing throughout. I love that there were drum fills during certain songs. The drums changed the beat and did different things from song within a single song, which is something that's a little bit different too for them a lot of the times. And I understand that when you're performing and you have a drum machine, you want to hit a button with your foot and let it play the same beat the whole time. And then you just change up what you're doing on your instruments to change the feeling from the chorus to the verse to the different parts of the song. But when you write a good song and you change and you craft it during the process of making it, I feel like you can really tell that they went the extra mile in this to do that, to craft the songs. And again, I think that comes to the fact that it sounds to me like I'm like 90% sure that they wrote this album together as a group more than they have wrote their previous stuff, and that they actually performed it and rehearsed it. And maybe coronavirus has something to do with this. I'm not sure when this album was released. I'm going to say it was maybe in June. And I don't know how fast they could do that. I mean, usually it takes months to get an album recorded, mixed, mastered, and all that stuff. So I don't know if this was all recorded and done before coronavirus hit this year. But if it hit and they were still working on it, then maybe that was to the benefit of this album, having them all be together. They can't go out, can't do anything, get together, write a good album, sit there, practice it, record it, and make it have this human feeling to it, which has kind of been lost in some of the previous Gangstagrass and Wrench stuff. So that to me is the end all be all. This album feels human. It feels like a collaborative human effort to put out great songs that you can tell they all just came together to do as good as they all could. There was no phoning it in that I could tell. Everything on this album sounded great. It's got to be the best Gangstagrass album. It's got to be. I mean, that very first unreleased Gangstagrass album that was just the samples and stuff, that is a very special album in my opinion. But there are some very, very poorly performed vocals on that album, and this is a million times better in terms of the performances. This is just such good songwriting. This album, No Time for Enemies, 2020, in my opinion, the best Gangstagrass album. And I don't think that there's any way this album will not be in my top 12 favorite albums of the year. I'm so happy we got a good Gangstagrass album. So happy. And like I said, this just makes me, the bar has been set to a new level. And I can't wait to see them pass that level in the future with whatever they do. Thank you very much for watching. I don't know how many more of these album reaction listens along with I'm going to do. It's a little bit of a headache to get all this stuff set up and do it. And my cameras are not good enough for me. I wish I had a better camera. But anyway, if you've watched this, thank you very much for watching. I have more of these videos on my channel. I do all sorts of crazy stuff on my channel, so check any of that stuff out too. There's video game stuff. There's music stuff. There's stuff with my nephew who's awesome. There's all sorts of fun stuff. And I've got more things planned in the future, but not many of these videos left. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll find a better way to review albums in the future. But if you like this and you like this format of listening along with me, let me know in the comments. You don't have to subscribe to my channel or anything like that. I'm not consistent enough to ask for anyone to subscribe. But, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this. If you stuck all the way through this whole video, thank you very much. The whole point is just to help sort of spread music. Share this video with someone that you think might like Gangstagrass or someone that does like Gangstagrass. I definitely feel like these videos are more for people who've are already familiar with the band, but I don't know. Thank you very much. Gangstagrass, Wrench, if you ever hear this or see this video, thank you so much for making the amazing music that you have made for over a decade now. Thank you so much for doing everything you've done for the music business, bringing people into the different aspects of music that you do, getting rap and hip-hop fans into the Americana country style of music, all the sort of the explosion of country rap that's happened last few years. Some of that just truly awful stuff is, I'm sure, inspired by the work that you have done. And none of it even comes close to half as good as this stuff is. So thank you very much for making the music that you make and continue to make, I'm sure. Thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.